SpectreVision Radio.
The summer heat in Japan is shattering and inescapable. Why not go to the beach to cool off? I'll tell you why not. Because there's something lurking on the coasts that is far more dangerous and horrific than an insidious rip current and a nasty case of sunburn. Hey, this is Teresa Matsura, author of the Book of Japanese Folklore, and coming in November of 2025, the Yōkai Oracle Deck. If you pre-order now, you lock in the price, because who knows what's going on with the tariffs. Anyway, you're listening to Uncanny Japan, brought to you by the awesome network SpectreVision Radio, and here I share with you all those lesser-known, fascinating, and sometimes frightening corners of Japanese culture. On today's show, you'll be accompanied by the soothing sounds of the ocean. Richard and I braved the heat and the danger that you're going to learn about in a second, and recorded some cool waves lovingly lapping the shore. Let the steady, timeless pulse of the sea lull you into a false sense of security while I tell you what will happen if you're not careful. For patrons, I'll put up a waves-only MP3 over on the Uncanny Japan Patreon page for sleep, study, or otherwise escaping the stressors of life. And for Kitsune tiered and above patrons, there's an ad-free version of the whole show. So go grab your sunscreen and a towel. We're going to the beach. How many islands do you think make up Japan? Did you say 4, 5? Wrong. Did you say 6,852? Also wrong, although you would have been correct on that last number until recently. It used to be 6,852, when 36 years ago, the Coast Guard sailed around and counted. They didn't do a very good job, though. They weren't even close. In 2023, using more modern digital mapping technology, the Geospatial Information Authority of Japan did a new count, and they came up with 14,125 islands. More than double. That's a lot of coastline. Basically, and I'm not really exaggerating here, to live in Japan, you have to squeeze into a space between all the mountains, throw in 111 active volcanoes, and the immense, still mostly unmapped, treacherous sea. Only about 27% of the entire country is habitable. You can kind of understand then why Japan is so full of monsters. There's all your land-based creatures in the forests and hills. You've got your oni, ogres, tengu, mountain goblins, and kitsune, foxes, to name only 3 on one side. And then you have your ocean-based beasties on the other. I've talked a little bit about boat ghosts, funayure, and sea monks, umibozu, in episode 20. There was the time I had a close encounter with an amabie, a prophetic sea creature, at the very beginning of COVID, in episode 49. I also talked in episode 83 about ningyo, or Japanese mermaids, and how hideous they look. But hey, they're absolutely delicious and bring something like immortality if you eat them. Heck, I even did a deep dive into the Utsuro Bune, the mysterious hollow spaceship that was found off the coast back in 1803, episode 78. But would you believe me if I told you that there were more? Well, there is, or there are. Let's cover a couple that have some similarities and crossover traits, and are very often confused with each other. But really, they should be seen as different creatures. I feel it's the least I can do. When you meet your end on a rugged shore of Japan because you stopped to help a mother and child or chat up a beautiful, soaking wet babe, you might as well know which yōkai did you in. Let's look first at Iso-onna. Her name means coastal woman or coast woman. Iso-onna's history doesn't go back as far as the second and arguably most dangerous seaside lady creature I'll be talking about today, but she's a little less complex, so we'll start with her. Iso-onna appears to her victim on an otherwise empty beach, looking as if she just strode out of the ocean. She's strikingly beautiful with thick, shiny black hair, so long it drags along the sand. Of course, she's completely sopping wet, too. There are some versions where you'll come across her standing on the shore or sitting on some rocks, gazing wistfully out to sea, sometimes even calling as if to someone or something in a creepy voice. If you approach, she'll most likely let loose the most horrific shriek you've ever heard, leaving you stunned just the right amount of time for her attack. Iso-onna's weapon of choice is that long, beautiful hair. All at once, the strands lift into the air, and using them like a great tangle of angry tentacles, she strikes. Damp, chilly locks grab and snake around your wrists, legs, torso, and throat. Struggle as much as you want, you're not going anywhere. Except with this coastal beast woman, who turns and strides back into the sea, dragging you along with her. Once in the water, she'll use those same tresses of hair to suck all your blood, like a vampire. Iso-onna is also the bane of fishermen and sailors. They make easily accessible and delicious prey too, especially at night. While they sleep, the coast woman makes her way across the mooring line and sneaks onto the boat to get her next meal, or in most cases, meals. In Kita-Kyushu, they say Iso-onna are some kind of transformed crabs, and that they can go anywhere a crab can. This would explain being able to deftly maneuver the rope tying the boat to land. These legends say she can't actually swim, though. I don't know about that one. There are way too many stories talking about her coming out and going into the ocean. She's always drenched, and I'm assuming she's not drowning there. But let's back up a tick and revisit the crossing the mooring line to get to the boat bit. I can't help but wonder what that looks like. Remember, it's nighttime. You hear the creaking of the rope, the slow slosh of the waves against the hull. There might be some thin blue moonlight or the jittery flicker of lanterns burning either on the shore or on the deck. But it's gloomy dark for the most part, so it'll be the movement itself that gets your attention. An indistinct human shape coming toward you across the rope. She could tightrope walk across it, arms out for balance. A little silly looking, but maybe not. In the dark, that would surely freak me out. She could hang from the line upside down like some kind of Navy SEAL doing a rope traverse, ankles hooked, pulling herself quietly toward the boat. But that's not super cool either. A little too human. In the dark, I'd probably think it's a ninja before considering it might be an Iso-onna coming to drain me of all my fluids. We've got a clue, though, from the legend about the crabs, that have somehow transformed into this coastal woman. Does she walk sideways across, scooting along? Or hear me out, does she crouch down, somewhat resembling a crab, and scuttle sideways across the rope that way? Entirely uncanny? Restless hair looking like a mass of writhing snakes whipping about her head. Now, if I were a fisherman, come out on deck to have a smoke, and I saw that in the gloaming light, that would very much put the fear of God in me. But I've yet to find anything describing exactly how she crosses, so we'll have to use our imaginations, I guess. Oh, in the Tohoku region, it's rumored that she can actually walk on water. Another unsettling visual. Anyway, seamen weren't born yesterday. They have tactics to prevent such devilry. One way is to anchor a ways offshore. This might work if she's a creature who lives on the coast and needs to creep across ropes to gain access to the fishermen. Otherwise, I think she'd just climb up the anchor line. Another thing sailors do when stopping for the night in an area known for tales of Iso-onna. They will arrange their clothes and straw sandals in a way that you'll see them in the fuzzy blue moonlight and think, oh, look, a bunch of sea-weary fishermen have all lined up and fallen asleep on the deck. Just my luck. I'm not sure what stops her, after realizing that she's been tricked, from marching right below deck into their cabins and draining every last man of his life's blood. Perhaps she's that easily fooled, or not very tenacious. But doing that seems to keep the creature at bay. So how can you identify a coastal woman? Well, if you ever do come across a dreamy-eyed, soaking wet lady with disturbingly long hair at the beach in Japan, look closely. You might be mesmerized by her otherworldly beauty, but if she's an Iso-onna, her bottom half is usually slightly out of focus, ghostly even. There are also reports it resembles the back half of a fish if you squint hard enough. That's your clue to run like hell. Or, I guess you could take off your clothes and shoes and leave them out on the sand in a mock version of yourself. But let's hope it really was an Iso-onna, or you might find yourself in jail for indecent exposure. That's your call. If you get any bright ideas like hiding behind a rock or something to avoid a coastal woman, you might want to think again, because she can actually disguise herself as a big rock. Or another version says that when she's facing away from you, she actually looks like a large stone. So there's that. Now, our second perilous lady friend today is the one with a longer history, who it turns out is much more violent, if you can believe that. It's the Nure-onna. She also appears as if she's just risen from the depths of the ocean, and she's monikered to express just that. Nure means wet, and onna means woman. She too has long black hair, plastered like strands of sea kelp to her head and face and neck, but not her clothes, because she isn't wearing any. No, it's not what you're thinking, not even close. She's all dripping hair and long protruding tongue up top, and all giant snake and writhing down below. How much giant snake? Well, there's an old story from the Edo era, 1819 to be exact, about some young men who were unfortunate enough to run into a Nure-onna while out in their boats one day. Long story short, not all of them returned. The ones who did, though, reported that her tail was around 327 meters long, or 1,073 feet. I'm not sure where you'd start measuring her tail. Would it be from her neck or her waist. Where's a snake's waist? But I guess it doesn't really matter because 327 meters or 1,073 feet is quite long enough. That tale took place in a river, by the way, so you're really not safe anywhere. Aside from the sopping wet head of a woman and body of an enormous snake, how else can you identify the Nure-onna? Well, for one, sometimes she's depicted with creepy little arms. Sometimes no arms, zero, all snake. She's usually found on a quiet riverbank or lonely beach with her lower reptilian half deftly hidden. If the armed version, she might be washing her hair. While artwork usually shows her with a not too traditionally attractive face, some stories say she can also disguise that at will, too. So she might look very comely indeed. You can't judge an oversized snake woman by her looks alone. Either way, the victim approaches out of curiosity or bad intention or even just friendliness, and that's when she lunges and attacks with her extremely long forked tongue, or her hair, or both, wrapping it or them around you so you can't escape. So that's one method of attack. She has another more devious trick up her proverbial sleeve, the one often associated with her. Sometimes you'll come across her cradling a small bundle in her freaky little snake arms, which you'll assume is a baby. That's your first mistake. She'll look all distressed and call you over to please just hold her child for a moment while she, quote-unquote, does something. You're a nice person. You can't refuse. Besides, she's dripping wet, and she must be in some kind of distress. You have a lot of questions, but, "Hi," you say, and you trot on over. That's your second mistake. If you take the little bundle of joy, it will immediately grow heavy. Sometimes it actually is a weird-looking infant that latches onto you and holds on tight, like the Konaki Jiji. Those who are familiar with the manga and anime by Mizuki Shigeru, Gegege no Kitaro, will know Konaki Jiji very well. He's, as his name very accurately states, is an old man who cries like a baby. Found in the forests of Japan, passers-by scoop him up, thinking he's a real child, and he latches onto them and starts growing heavier and heavier and heavier until he crushes them. In Nure-onna's case, you only get pinned down to the spot. There's no crushing or dragging you into the ocean to feast. You get eaten right there where you made that final bad decision. Several things can happen. Nure-onna can take her time, draining you of all your blood using her forked reptilian tongue. Or she can call a friend to dinner. The Ushioni, or ox demon. Let me brush you up on him real quick. An Ushioni, or sometimes called a yōkai, which is just a different pronunciation for the same characters, is one of the nastiest monsters you'll ever meet. Or, well, he's up there. Imagine a gigantic spider with the head of an oni, all fangs and long ox horns. Well, these Ushioni like to hang out in or around water. Not just the sea, but rivers, lakes, waterfalls. So again, you're not really safe anywhere. And they're known for being very bloodthirsty, vicious, strong, and never giving up once they're after you. Not like the Iso-onna, who just toddles off after finding some empty clothes. Ushioni basically just wants to eat you whole, or rip you limb from limb, and then eat you. Their breath is poison, and if they lick your shadow, you'll fall deathly ill, or perhaps just die. You kind of wonder why they'd need anyone's help to find their next meal, but evidently they do like to team up with the Nure-onna to do just that. Different legends have different theories. Some say Nure-onna is employed by the Ushioni, or kind of used by him, or even married to him, or that they're in fact the same creature. It's all very intriguing. So after she's trapped the victim, she'll wade, or slither might work better, back into the sea, and the Ushioni will come out and feed. Sometimes they just enjoy their human dinner together, like a couple. So romantic. Do you want that last thigh, or can I have it? I think now is a good time to introduce someone called Nure-onna, another drenched damsel, but less snake, more human-like and ghostly in appearance, often covered in leaves and mud, not just found on the coast, but near swamps and lakes, rivers, or even during a heavy rain. This one to me feels almost urban legendy. In one version, you rush over to help her and she smiles at you. You smile back. Done. She will now then follow you around for the rest of your life. Very creepy-like. The key here is not to smile, or to say yakamashi, meaning noisy, and then she'll disappear. She's related to something called the Hari-onna, who is surprisingly not sopping wet and looks just like your normal, average, run-of-the-mill young woman, except for her long, disheveled hair. And guess what? That hair has a life of its own, much like we talked about with Iso-onna, only Hari-onna means needle woman, and the ends of those locks are equipped with sharp barbs or hooks. She does the smile thing, and you smile back, but instead of stalking you for the rest of your life, like Nure-onna, she attacks with her hair, ripping at the victim's flesh with her hooks, then eating what shredded mess is left. If you're super fast, you can escape, so run inside, lock and barricade your door, and wait through the night. The next morning, when you think, maybe it was all just a nightmare, you'll go outside, find the wood on your door ravaged by her attacking it during the night. So other than digging sand out of your swimsuit, peeling jellyfish off your back, and trying to avoid giant squids, you have a handful of other things to be watchful for while on the beach in Japan. But hey, at least the water's cool. Thank you so much for listening, for buying the books, the oracle cards, for becoming patrons, and for leaving reviews. I will talk to you again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.